Good afternoon, Patriots. Here's your midday news update for January 21st. We have a busy couple stories here for you, and as you can see over my shoulder, Donald Trump just landed in Davos, Switzerland, where he has a series of keynote speeches to the World Economic Forum and the Globalists. And let me tell you, his first keynote was fire. He's put the Globalists in their place. We have some other updates as well in Minnesota, as well as Maine, and a few other important parts of the deep state breaking up. Let's get to it. So before Donald Trump left for Davos, Switzerland, he had a little sweet message for Iran if you pulled any funny business while he's gone over in Europe.
In Iran.
Well, they shouldn't be doing it, but I've left notification. Anything ever happens, we're going to blow the whole country is going to get blown up. So we've, originally Biden should have said something. When they made a statement, we always said, why isn't Biden saying anything? Because he didn't. But a president has to defend a president. Like if I were here and they were making that threat to somebody, not even a president, but somebody like they did with me, I would absolutely hit them so hard. But I have very firm instructions. Anything happens, they're going to wipe them off the face of this earth.
So there you go. Donald Trump has set the tone for Iran, and this is really another part of the Down Road Doctrine, his foreign policy initiatives. And that is setting the tone that if you mess around with us, we're coming at you full bore. Just ask Venezuela how that worked out. Let's get to the next story. So during Donald Trump's first keynote speech in Davos, he made it very clear to everybody, including all of the European leaders, that he's going for Greenland.
2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%, there's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States.
So again, Donald Trump is setting the tone that he wants Greenland and he wants it now. So this, again, for those of you who don't know, he's over in Davos, Switzerland, in front of every one of the world's leaders, as well as the wealthiest people that drive all the deep state initiatives. He's letting it be known, again, that he wants Greenland and you're not going to get in his way. So who wants to take a bet? Why don't you let me know in the comments down below? Do you think Donald Trump's going to be successful in getting Greenland before he comes back and sets foot in the United States? So the next story back here in America we have is that AG Ellison, the Attorney General in Minnesota for Tim Walz, well, he just got subpoenaed yesterday along with Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey out of Minneapolis. Well, this was a news hit that Ellison had last night on MS Now, and you can see the panic in his eyes.
Or apology. Keith Ellison is the Minnesota Attorney General whose office just received a subpoena from Donald Trump's Department of Justice, and he joins me now. I want to start with
By the way, it's quite the somber tone here from MS Now. Just 24 hours prior, they were celebrating with the radicals that were busting into churches. Ellison was ambivalent, if not in full support, of the protesters that went into the church. And now you can see this is a much different tone from both MS Now, who is celebrating it, and AG Ellison.
The subpoena, I'm going to ask you about some of the things we're seeing, because that news just broke. Sure. It was reported on Friday night that they would be sending subpoenas out, I think, to Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and yourself. I believe you have received the subpoena. What can you tell us, and what's your response?
We're going to look it over, and we'll respond according to law. I can tell you, though, they're announcing investigations from all of us, and you mentioned 3 of us here in Minnesota. Actually, they're actually messing with the brand new mayor of St. Paul and the Kennesaw County attorney. But they're not investigating the person who ended the life of Renee Good. There's no investigation on that at all.
Well, that's actually a lie. There's an ongoing investigation into that. But more to the point, Keith Ellison, we're talking about what you've been up to and what you may have done. So you have some answering to do. Have fun with a subpoena along with your buddy, Governor Walz, as well as Mayor Jacob Frey, who, as you all know, told ICE to F off just the other day and get the F out of Minneapolis. So more to come on that story. So we're staying in Minnesota for the next breaking news, and this is that Ilhan Omar and her finances an incredible parabolic wealth as she's been a member of Congress. Well, guess what? That's now under investigation as well. So there's a whole lot of investigations for the leadership in Minnesota. Let's have a listen.
News alert, Ilhan Omar under investigation after racking up millions while she was in Congress. Senior national correspondent Kevin Cork has it. What's up, Kevin?
Good to see you, my friend. What's the old saying? Follow the money? Well, that's precisely what the House Oversight Committee is doing. They are probing squad member Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing family wealth, Jesse, especially in the wake of that $9 billion, some would argue $19 billion, Somali social.
Just listen to that. Again, we're going to let this roll here in a second. The initial estimate for the fraud that's been happening in Minnesota was $1 billion. Now, the gentleman on Fox here says that it's now somewhere between 9 and 19 billion. This is astronomical amounts of fraud. And Ilhan Omar, we want to know what you knew and when you knew it, and potentially were you on the take. We'll see. Nobody knows. But the investigation is underway.
Services fraud scandal that exploded in her district in Minnesota. The oversight chair, James Comer, says his team's lawyers are exploring the extraordinary step of subpoenaing Omar's spouse over his curious business practices. Republicans want to know how the Somali-born Omar and her politically connected husband, Tim Minette, went from being nearly broke to being worth around $30 million in just a year, according to her 2024 disclosure forms. Quoting Comer now, there are a lot of questions as to how her husband accumulated so much wealth over the past 2 years. It's not possible.
It's not possible. And the fact of the matter is that any public official who's on the dole, or in this case, potentially or allegedly, their spouse is on the dole, just listen to this number, right? When she did her first initial financial disclosure getting into Congress, she had actually negative wealth. She had some student loans to the tune of about $50,000. So she was negative 50 when she started. 2 years later, her and her husband are plus 30 million. Plus 30 million. Warren Buffett, the world's best investor, couldn't be doing what Miss Ilhan Omar and her husband have been doing. So again, James Comer and the House investigation that he's now starting is going to, again, tell us some more details, and I'm curious to see where this goes. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Omar's on the take, or do you think there's nothing to be seen? Our next news story is actually in D.C., but it's referring to all of those activities that we've been seeing in Minnesota. Remember, the mainstream media and all of the progressives are running with the message that ICE is arresting grandmothers and fathers who are dropping their children off at school. Well, Donald Trump, just before he took off to Davos, Switzerland yesterday, he did a little review on some of the actual criminals that have been... He did a little review on the actual criminals that have been swept up by ICE in Minneapolis.
I don't know how they can take the abuse. They're taking rough people like this, like all of them. We have 10,000 at least. I could have done 10,000 of them. You're lucky I only did like 100. And this isn't even the worst of the group. They have murderers. They have some people we can't use their picture for legal reasons, but they're up for murder in their own country. And we jeopardize their case. When we send them back and we coordinate with other countries. A tremendous amount of work. All allowed in here by an open border policy of the worst president in the history of our country. A man that didn't win the election, by the way, it's a rigged election. Everybody knows that now. And by the way, numbers are coming out that show it even more plainly. We caught him. So I just want you to know that it's a terrible.
So again, Donald Trump took to the press and actually showed the facts. The facts are that some of the worst criminals in the world are being swept up by ICE. But don't miss what he just dropped, because there's going to be more to this story. Whispers are that they've sent subpoenas out and are very close to arresting some of the people that may be involved in some of the nefarious activities back in 2020. More to come there. Let's get to our next story. So Christie Noem hit Newsmax and Greta, and she was again going forward with the message of the criminals. But the reason I put this in here is it's important for us to know exactly what Mayor Frey and Governor Tim Walz haven't been doing, or more specifically, have not allowed ICE to do. So we're all wondering, why is ICE in the streets? Well, it's because Walz and Frey are not letting them in the jails.
We have a national targeting center that identifies those who've committed crimes. So they've done something in this country or in their home country that has been criminal charges against them, or they've been convicted. Many times these individuals are in jails or prisons in some of our states already that we just want those local law enforcement officers to turn over to us. For example, one of the things we've asked Governor Walz for and Mayor Frey is to give us just the criminals you have in jail. They've released 490 murderers and rapists and drug traffickers onto their streets rather.
Let me stop there. Again, 490 criminals have been released onto the streets in Minnesota, specifically in this case, Minneapolis, by this gentleman, Jacob Frey. And we wonder why ICE is finding some of these hardened criminals on the streets. It's because they were in jail and they were let out of jail. Very, very curious, and probably leads to the fact of why this gentleman, Jacob Frey, got a subpoena yesterday.
Then just give them to us. And that's what I don't understand.
Well, you know, some of them, though, have multiple names.
Yes.
It was a big problem. If you come in illegally, you don't necessarily have a Social Security card, you don't have a passport, there's no database back in your home country because it's a country we're not friendly with.
Yeah, or they've lied on their paperwork to come in, and then they've overstayed and not shown up for their immigration court hearings. They've been notified, and then they've run into DUIs, other incidences. So what we're doing is targeting those who have committed criminal acts. But if we show up and we're going after a TDA member in an apartment, and they're in an apartment with 12 other people, we're going to ask those other people who they are, what their identity is, just like we would any other law enforcement operation. I think that's what people don't know, is that we're doing the same thing that law enforcement has done for years under this administration, the Biden administration, all of them. We haven't changed what we do in these types of situations.
And these type of situations have now led to thousands of arrests by ICE in Minnesota. So kudos to you, Christie Noem, and your team, along with the others that are doing what we voted for, right? We want to make America safe again, and that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing with your assistance, Christie. So great job. Let's get on to the next story. Well, the main protester who led the church invasion in Minneapolis, right? We all saw that footage coming from Sunday morning service in Minneapolis. This gentleman stormed church, broke federal law, and he has a message now for Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice.
I mean, what we're seeing around this country is they're using their political influence to attack people that disagree with them. They're going to come at me with charges, and I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, their service. They welcomed us in. They never asked us to leave. The police never came in and removed us. So we didn't stop their service. In fact, people were still praying the entire time. The music was still playing the entire time. So, Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it. And for all the people giving me death threats, threatening my life, kill me. Go ahead, kill me. Because you know what? As Fred Hampton said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
Wow, that's pretty tough. And everything he just said, incidentally, is a lie, because here is the footage from Sunday morning. And you can remember what he said. They were invited in. People were praying actively during their storming the service, and that nothing really took place that was wrong. Well, Pam Bondi and the federal authorities disagree with you. But let's have a look specifically at what this gentleman was saying so you could see just how much he was lying.
Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities?
I'm not going to comment.
You have no comment, exactly.
What do you think of this?
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Right.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here.
I don't know if you caught that. It's incredibly offensive by Don Lemon, where he's saying to the mean pastor here as he was in the middle of his sermon and, again, had these protesters storm in, where he's saying, hey, I'm being respectful. Please don't push me. He's been asked, incidentally, to leave the premise by this lead pastor 5 times before you just saw him saying, please don't push me. I'm trying to be respectful. You're not being respectful. And back to your First Amendment comment, Don, that actually stops at the steps of the church, who's nice enough, incidentally, to have their doors open because they want people to come to Christ. What you just did is took advantage of their generosity and their openness and, again, trying to stamp on their federally protected rights to practicing their faith and doing it in a safe manner. So, Don Lemon, you and the main protester, you're completely lying and misrepresenting yourselves as to what you did and how you did it. And, Don, maybe when you knew that this was going to happen, all of those questions are going to be part of a federal investigation. Good luck. Don Lemon, you're going to need the good luck because Christie Noem made a little comment on what you can expect in your near future.
That pastor really did a remarkable thing there, trying to protect his parishioners.
And even the parishioners, I imagine, have feel intimidated and
they did, and there's going to be arrests in the next several hours, Greta. There will be arrests tied to that, and people will be brought to justice for how they violated the law in that situation.
Well, Don Lemon is a journalist, and so I thought he was going, and so when I first saw it, I assumed he was going in as a journalist covering it. I mean, I go into bad places and ask questions all the time, but when his comment about the white supremacy all of a sudden made me think, well, maybe he wasn't there as a journalist.
Yeah, well, Greta, not only that comment, but the fact that ahead of time, before this even happened, he said that he'd conducted some surveillance before they went into this church. He identified individuals that were going in with him that were activists in the work that they'd done in the past. The fact that this entire situation was then posted on the Black Lives Matter website, all of that is something that they're going to be responsible for.
So there will be much more to the Don Lemon story, I assure you. So there you have it. Those are the most important news stories while you stepped away here midday on January 21st.
We won! Okay, let's go.